Do you play fantasy football? Of course you do. Why else would you be watching this video? Do you use a cheat sheet on draft day? Everyone does. But is your cheat sheet fully customizable? No? Ours is, and it's based off of projections from Fantasy Football Mastermind. Does your league draft with a standard draft or an auction draft style? Doesn't matter. Our tool handles both types. Actually, you can use this same tool for all of your drafts, whether you're in 1 league or 15 leagues. Do you have trouble tracking auction values during the draft? So did we. But our fantasy draft tool tracks each player's value, total spent so far, total remaining, and our signature 1 player max value. Imagine this. You're down to 8 roster spots, $35 left to spend, and there's a $1 minimum for every player on your roster. How much can you spend on 1 player while having enough to fill the other 7 roster spots? I can't do the math in my head either, but our tool calculates the math instantly for you. You can spend $28 on any 1 player, assuming you spend the minimum $1 on the remaining 7 roster spots. FantasyDraftTools.com has partnered with Fantasy Football Mastermind in creation of the Executive Draft Master. As a definitive fantasy information service, Fantasy Football Mastermind brings over 14 years of experience to our latest version of our fantasy football draft tool. We've combined Fantasy Football Mastermind's master list, which are customizable positional cheat sheets, and our fantasy football draft tool, which is a customizable draft day software, into one new tool, the Executive Draft Master. With this tool, there really is no other product out in the market more valuable than this when it comes to your draft. But don't believe us. Download a fully functional sample file for yourself out on FantasyDraftTools.com. But let's jump into a quick demo of the tool to show you some of the key features. What we're looking at here is the Executive Draft Master. This is the scoring tab where you will input your scoring system for your specific league. Fully customizable for whatever you need to be for your scoring. You have quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, kickers, team defense, defensive line, linebackers, and defensive backs. They could all be customized for whatever your league needs to be done. Once you've entered all your scoring system, simply click on this Reorders Master List button. It'll go tab by tab and reorder based on your scoring system and Fantasy Football Mastermind's projections. Some of the great things is it's fully customizable. The only things you can't change on these sheets are the things in green. You can't change the rank, you can't change the player, and you can't change the fantasy points. But you can change the projections, which will impact the fantasy points. Some neat features here is you have different tiers of players. So for instance, Andre Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald are all in the fantasy tier 1 of wide receivers. So if you can get one of those guys, you know you're solid. Fantasy tier 2 is pretty good too, because there's 5 guys in here between Moss, Wayne Smith, Johnson, and Jennings. And then it goes so on and so forth. But it's a good way to group certain players versus other players, so you know what kind of draft player you're getting. Some of the other features in here, let's say you think Steve Smith is a rising draft player. So you simply put an R in here for rising, and now Steve Smith's entire line is now red. Stands out, lets you know that this player is rising. But Reggie Wayne is falling. Not so true, but just to show you an example of the tool. Put an F in here. Change Reggie's line to blue so that he's falling. But the projections are still the same. So why is Steve Smith rising? You think he might have 10 touchdowns instead of the 8 touchdowns that we projected. Simply change the 8 to a 10, hit enter, and now you see that his projections have increased. But they're out of order. Let's sort them. Click on the Recalculate Rankings button. So now Steve Smith is rising, Reggie Wayne is falling, and we're sorted based on the right projections. Okay? There's a tab for each of the positions, and then we have a masters list which puts it all together. And this works directly with each of those positional tabs. So as you can see, Steve Smith is 304 and Reggie Wayne is 295, and they're red and blue based on the corresponding colors we saw before. It has the tiers, it has their bye week, everything is right here for you, and all the positions are over to the side as well. Okay, now let's jump into the draft tool to show you how everything is correlated together. We're going to customize our draft tool. You can pick how many teams are in your league, how many roster spots are needed, what's the minimum auction price, salary cap option. Most leagues have the same salary cap option, say $200, which you would use this drop down for. But sometimes you have individual salary caps where you have keepers that are kept from year to year, you keep their salary. Let's change this to individual. By doing that, you've opened up this section over here where you can just simply go and change the individual salary caps. For purposes of the demo, I'm going to keep it at same, and everybody's got 200. Standard draft, auction draft. Take your pick. Let's do auction draft. When you're ready, you can change any of the team names to whatever it may be, and then we simply click on this Build Draft Board button. Once it's done, you're going to get this message. Congratulations, the Executive Draft Master has been built successfully. Okay. What you're looking at here is the draft board. This is where all your picks will be entered, and then the picks will correlate with your cheat sheets. Let's say the Dogs go and get Peyton Manning as their first pick. So there's a drop-down box here of all the positions. So we're going to pick quarterback, because Peyton Manning's a quarterback. This box is then pre-populated based on this box. So a quarterback list, you'll see quarterbacks. If I picked running back, this would be populated with all the running backs. So let's stick with the quarterback for now. Oops, sorry. And we said Peyton Manning. Notice the order that this is in. It's working straight off your cheat sheet. $34. So let's just say Peyton Manning, $34 went to the Dogs. Okay. Let's go and take a wide receiver real quick just to show you. Say you got here, Steve Smith. This is the guy we said was rising. $28. Let's go back and look at the wide receiver tab. Hey, Steve Smith is crossed off your list. Easy on the eyes, let you know who's available, who's not. Also, if I jump over to the Masters list, you can see that Peyton Manning is crossed off here and Steve Smith is crossed off here. Very easy on the eyes, and it'll definitely tell you what's going on in the draft. Okay, a couple other neat features. Keeping track of your auction values, we talked about this earlier. You have your total spent so far versus your total remaining. So the $62 is the total of $34.28. The total remaining is the $200 salary cap minus the $62. Gives you $138. The one player max. This is awesome. This takes into account you can spend $123 on any given player. You're not going to, but you can. $123 on one player, assuming you spend the minimum of $1, which happens to be the minimum auction price in this league, on all of these positions. And then that last one is $123. This is a great feature when it comes down to a real bidding war that you need to know how high can you go on a certain guy. Okay. Some of the other neat features in here is our summary. You click on this summary button and it's going to show you the team, the Dogs, who they picked, their teams, bye weeks, and the amounts that they spent. The one player max, total spent, and total left for that team. So that's the Dogs. If you click on these buttons, it'll jump to the other teams. Then over here on the right is the player pool. So here's a quarterback. Drew Brees, Tom Brady, these are the guys left. This empty space, that's where Peyton Manning was. This way you know this is working straight off of your cheat sheet. So the guys get crossed off your cheat sheet, they get removed from the player pool. Let's go look at the wide receiver. Look. We're missing our wide receiver. That was Steve Smith. Okay? Each one of them works directly with your cheat sheet. So the drop down box here works with your cheat sheet. The summary works with your cheat sheet, and the player pool works with your cheat sheet. Okay, so now we've seen each roster, and you could toggle between rosters. You see the important money factors here for your auction draft, and then the player pool. Now let's go and say, hey, I want to see all the teams in one shot. Okay, this has all the teams, all their positions, and then the players that they have. Only filled out a couple players, so should show you the tool, but as you add more players, it'll start showing up here. And then the last piece that we're going to go over, if I just jump back to the summary, you can toggle between the two and then exit to the draft board. These other blue buttons up at the top are all your team names. Simply click on the button to toggle between each of the teams. Okay, and then the other feature of this draft tool is that you have standard draft and auction draft. So let's go out here and let's pick standard draft, build your draft board, get your congratulations message. Notice there's no more dollar figures here, but just a straight capability to pick. Okay, the elephant's got Tom Brady. Go to your summary. This is the Dogs. Check out the elephants. There's Tom Brady. Check your QB tab. Everything's good to go. If you have any questions, feel free to check us out at fantasydrafttools.com, and don't forget to download a fully functional sample file for yourself. You'll see the power of this tool. Thank you.